All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. Well, welcome everyone to the Networking Masterclass for September. I'm your host, Dave Potter, and I'll be guiding us through this fantastic webinar today. So thanks so much for taking the time and for this opportunity to share what we have in store with you today. So before we get started, I apologize for a slight typo at the top of this slide because I've already caught it out and made some changes over here. Our previous webinar was VoIP only. Well, today we have restored phone audio. So if you're joining us by computer or VoIP and you hear us, great, fantastic. But if you're having trouble with your internet, maybe Wi-Fi isn't working that well, you may have a better experience dialing in. So if you prefer to try one or the other, I will invite you to switch between computer or phone as needed to hear us the most clearly. Second, this is not the same without your direct feedback. This webinar is live and we love your questions as we go through and review the content and share it with you. So we really appreciate your questions. We love it when you ask us questions, and we will do our best to try to answer them directly during the webinar itself, or perhaps with the presenter to the large audience. If for any reason we are unable to get back to you during the webinar itself with any of your questions, then please write us at networkingmasterclass@citrix.com. Finally, just to let you know, this session is being recorded, which means if you've got to take a break, you have to take another call, or perhaps just an unexpected interruption with a sibling in the room, don't worry, you won't miss the content. We will be sending out a link to the recording of this webinar later on in an email after the webinar has concluded. So if you need to step away, you won't miss any content. And on the other hand, if you think some of this content was awesome today and you would like to share it with a colleague or a friend, then you will be able to share that link to the recording as well. So we're just coming back from a great summer break in the US. It was a little bit awkward. It was on more of a staycation than a vacation, I think, for many of us. But regardless, we did have a nice break in August, and we hope you did get a little chance to unwind as well. And now that it's September, we're back, and today is Wednesday. So thank you everyone for joining us. Today we have a packed group of presenters. These are the product Citrix ADC All-Stars. We have guest presenters Hari, Arvind, Vikas, and Isha joining us today, each with a special part of content that we'll be sharing today. So what do we have up in store today? So today we're going to talk all about the ADC and the capabilities in public cloud, specifically on AWS, Azure, and GCP. We're going to talk about what you can do specifically in terms of being able to save costs or cut costs and improve performance with Autoscale using our ADM service. We're also going to talk about how you can do things like make your apps available in multiple locations with business continuity. And then we're going to round things out with what we do different in ADM service, specifically when it comes to deploying VPXs in public cloud. And as a token and a thank you for joining us today, we will have a prize giveaway at the end of the webinar, and then we'll be closing things out. I'll be closing things with some thoughts and departing thoughts for you. Also, we'd love to hear what you think about the content today, and if you have any future topics or things that you'd like for us to cover in the upcoming future. So if you would care to send us any ideas for topics that you'd like to see in the future, feel free to post that in the Q&A panel or email us at networkingmasterclass@citrix.com. This session today was actually a result of direct feedback from you. So it really does matter, and we really like to be able to keep it relevant to you and making things what you are interested the most. So today's giveaway is a Roku Ultra. This is the top of the line Roku. It allows you to stream 4K to your smart TV or to your, it doesn't have to be a smart TV at all. This is basically the live streaming service, and it's very fast, and it has headphones on the remote, and it's super cool. So it reloads the app super fast. If you already have a Roku, maybe the streaming stick, this is the creme of the creme. It's a great, fantastic product, and can't say enough good things about Roku, and I'm happy to present this to somebody, a lucky winner, at the end of the webinar today. So what I'll be doing is I'll be asking a question from the content, And whoever comes up with the answer first at the end of the webinar will win the prize. So to kick things off and to start our agenda today, we'll be starting off about the Citrix ADC in the public cloud. And before we get started, what I'd like to do is just to take a quick pulse and run a poll. So Carol, if I could have you launch the poll for us, I'd just like to get a heartbeat to see where the audience is today with us. So Carol, could we have you launch the poll?
Yes, I just launched it.
Fantastic. So we're looking to get just a quick pulse here to understand what are the public clouds that you're familiar with using. So it seems like Azure is a very popular pick. Of course, obviously everyone's heard about AWS, but are you using it? So we're very interested to get here is your feedback on what you are using the most. So it looks like we've got a pretty good round on votes. Fantastic. So it looks like indeed, in terms of cloud adoption, Azure comes in first, followed quickly by AWS. And it looks like there's quite a bit of folks on GCP. And some of you, looks pretty interesting. You must be here to see what's going on in the cloud, because if you're not using it yet, and you probably know it's coming, and that's probably why you're here with us today, which makes the content even more relevant and exciting. All right, Carol, do we have time for one more poll?
Yep, I just launched it.
Fantastic. All right, so one final poll here. Oh, it looks like we're running, are we running the same poll?
No, this one is asking in which one are they using Citrix ADC, if any?
I apologize. They're seeing the same options. So I think everyone's on top of it. So we're getting huge participation already. Over 60% of you have chimed in here. Where are you using your Citrix ADC in the public cloud? So this is going to be specifically to the people that are already using public cloud. So it looks like we've got a good quorum here. It looks like if we could go ahead and close out the poll, it looks like many of you that have started your journey into Azure are also using the ADC in Azure, which is fantastic news to us, because maybe you're in Azure and using just the Azure load balancer. Maybe Citrix doesn't work for you. Maybe you don't know enough about it. But either way, fantastic. We're excited to see that you're using Azure and the ADC in your public cloud exploration and adoption. All right, so with that, I'd like to go ahead and start our first topic today, which is all about the Citrix ADC in AWS. And so with that, I'd like to hand over the controls to Arvind to kick off our first topic today. Arvind, are you with us?
Thank you, Dave.
All right,
hi, everyone. Good morning. It's great to see the poll results, like the mix of audience that we have. It's really exciting. I think the content in this webinar is perfectly designed for all the purposes. Like it will serve for the people who are new to public cloud, who already have experience in public cloud and who are not using ADC, and even for those who are using ADC, because we have covered everything from the basics to the advanced. So here I'll just, I think I didn't introduce myself. I'm Arvind from ADC Product Management Team. I primarily take care of Citrix ADC in AWS. So in this part, I'll be covering what we have in, what offering we have for Citrix ADC in AWS today. A quick overview of the stuff, what we have. Some of the items we covered in earlier webinar.
So Arvind,
yes,
real
Dave?
quick, we're not seeing your screen just yet, if you're sharing a slide yet.
Oh, okay. I did make myself
okay, we got it.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So here quickly we'll go through the stuff what we have today already. It's a quick overview. Some of these items we went in detail in earlier webinars. So I'll give a quick overview for the benefit of others who didn't attend earlier webinars. And then we will go into some of the latest features that we released in Citrix ADC in AWS. So on the what's available today in the marketplace listings, we have both BYOL, bring your own license, and subscription offering. So for BYOL, it means if you already have ADC on-prem and if you have licenses there, you can bring those licenses onto the AWS and you can use them. That's why we call bring your own license. And we also have subscription offering. That is like AWS subscription offering in the marketplace. You can just go there and buy directly from AWS and start using. And one of the advantages this subscription offering gives you is like every listing that you have in marketplace, it has 21-day free trial. So you can just subscribe and start trying the product even before buying it. So those are the advantages we have with the different licensing types. And here we have all kind of edition: standard, advanced, premium, and express edition. So basically whatever features you are using, if you are already using in on-prem, so the same set of features you can use on AWS as well. And coming to the performance, like last year, we started supporting ENA driver. It was a networking enhancement driver that AWS has released basically to increase the performance of the instance. We started supporting that driver, and the performance of our instance increased like multiple folds. So with single instance, you can go up to 30 Gbps. And at the same time, to leverage this performance benefit, we even released Autoscale solution. So wherein we combine multiple nodes into a single entity and we give the performance together. So with that, we were able to achieve 100+ Gbps within one availability zone. So if you have an architecture wherein your application is spanning across multiple availability zones, you will get the performance of multiples in 100 Gbps. And on the capability front, whatever capability we have on-prem available today, it's already available in AWS, unless until there are some limitations on the AWS platform side or in the combination of AWS and ADC, but they are very, very minimum. So you will get the support for all application delivery use cases and application security use cases. And coming to the automation front, we have seen our customer journey clearly from the on-prem when they were moving to cloud. They were taking slow steps, like gradual steps. So partial application migration. Some people did migrate completely, but some people retained their environment. Some people created their environments across multiple clouds. So we had all kinds of combinations. In that, we clearly saw managing the infrastructure across these platforms become complex and it need to be handled. So that's why we came up with the support for this automation framework. In this automation framework, again, we have multiple combinations covering different use cases if some customer is completely on AWS. So we developed AWS Quick Start, working together with the AWS team. So it was a framework from AWS. We collaborated with them and we developed these. So this is for the customers who are completely on AWS, they can leverage. It's not that they can leverage, but if you have a complete deployment on AWS only, you can leverage this. And CFT is also same. It's a tool from AWS and you can leverage. And we have customers who have built their automation framework on-prem with tools like Terraform and Ansible. And they want to leverage the same frameworks on the AWS or public cloud. So for them, we developed Terraform templates and Ansible playbooks and modules, which they can leverage. They're available in our Citrix GitHub. You can leverage them. And even to simplify further, like who have on-prem and who might not have capacity to build their own automation framework, what we saw is in our customer segment, clearly, some of the customer base is very tech savvy. They have dedicated dev team and they create their own automation frameworks. But there are some customers who rely on the vendor for the automation. Some tools they need ready to use tools. And with that, like we brought ADM. So ADM, you can leverage, ADM can do much more than just automation. But in context of automation, ADM can help to provision, configure, manage, monitor like ADCs across environments, let it be on-prem, any form factor, any public cloud. So we will go deep into the smart deployment, which is something very new and hot that we have brought. And coming to the hybrid deployments, we clearly saw different kinds of use cases here, wherein some of the customers said, maybe we cannot move to public cloud. Then AWS said, okay, you don't have to come, we will come to your data center. So that's how they brought in the Outpost. They started shipping their hardware boxes with the same software as the public cloud. So in those combination of hybrid deployments also, Citrix ADC has been qualified. So even last year at reInvent, we were launch partner. We were the first launch partner for Outpost. And we also saw on the VMware, like if you see, Citrix ADC is highly used on VMware hypervisor, mostly on-prem. And many of customers, when they move to public cloud, VMware had a strategy, make sure they are their customers, even if they move to public cloud. So that's where VMC in AWS. And when ADC customers move, they have a support for ADC in VMC in AWS also. So wherever customer is, whatever deployment, whatever combination of deployment they are using, Citrix ADC supports them. So this is a quick overview of what we have today. And next, we will go to some of the latest updates. So these are not the only updates that we have. We have a lot of features and enhancements that we have delivered in past. But considering the time and considering the importance of some of the aspects, we are just covering a few things here. First one is the smart deployment from the ADM. This will go in deep. So why we exactly brought this smart deployment is, if you see, we already have a mechanism to deploy ADCs in public cloud in ADM. We already have it, but we just followed the actuals. Like customers have to create their own AWS environment infrastructure. Then they create the infrastructure required for the ADM, and then they deploy the ADCs and then deploy the applications. We clearly saw this workflow is very clear for customers to work out, but it has a lot of customizations that they need to do. But if there are customers who really are new to the public cloud and they don't want to go detailed workflows, they just need faster approach to try the product to understand the workflows. So for those kind of use cases, we brought the smart deployment, wherein ADM service will do the maximum automation of the infrastructure creation. So they don't have to bother about the infrastructure that is required for ADCs. They can only concentrate on the infrastructure that is required for their application. So the rest is taken care by ADM service. So that's how automation is done. And by default, we launch ADCs in Autoscale mode. It's basically the cloud mode, you can say, wherein you deploy something on cloud, you shouldn't be bothering whether it is to the capacity or not, right? Like on cloud gives on-demand capacity, and we should be able to design our applications in a way that they take the capacity on demand. And ADC is designed for that, and ADC Autoscale mode is the one. When you use that, you don't have to worry about the capacity thing. And how exactly this smart deployment works? So here it is, as we said, it's a 3-stage deployment. So these are the 3 stages. The first one is the creating a cloud access profile. So basically, as we said, ADM service is doing the automation behalf of customer. It needs some privileges to do those automation tasks in their cloud account. So this is the step where we give that access to ADM service. Once we give the access, ADM service know what it need to do to deploy an ADC. First, the required infrastructure in the AWS is created, like maybe subnets, internet gateway, all those are created. And then it knows what ADM infrastructure is required. And then it deploys the agents, and then it deploys the ADCs and connects to the ADM service. So once the environment is ready, it will give an option to configure the application. So once you configure the application, it is ready to receive the traffic. So this we will see in the demo also, how the seamless workflow happens. And what benefits this smart deployment brings. So as we said, a lot of automation is happening. There are less number of clicks or number of items that you have to fill or bother much. So it's a seamless deployment. And the next is try and buy option is enabled. So maybe earlier, if you have already tried Citrix ADC Autoscale deployment in ADM, if you see ADC Express was not supported. So you have to use paid licenses. But we brought the support for ADC Express so that ADC Express combination with ADM Service Express can be used. And without paying anything for ADM or ADC, you can try the product and you can try the solution. You may have to pay basic charges for the public cloud infrastructure, but for ADM and ADC, you can try for free. And as we said, it is an Autoscale mode deployment by default. There is no capacity planning. So these are the benefits that you can reap with the smart deployment. So how it looks like before showing the demo, I'll just give you a screenshot, static screenshot here. So basically, when you are deploying Autoscale group, you will get an option for evaluation or production. So we recommend you try evaluation first because it doesn't cost anything other than basic infrastructure cost. So once you select the evaluation option, you will get a drop down for ADC VPX Express, and instance type is automatically selected. The least costly and the minimum infrastructure that is required for an ADC to run instance is recommended. So that instance, you can run the ADC VPX Express cluster on AWS from ADM, and you can explore the solution. You can explore the solution. So with that, we'll quickly jump to the demo where you can see the actual workflow, how it works. So when you log into ADM first time user screens, you get started screen. And then once you click get started, you will get an option whether you want to go with the smart deployment or custom deployment. So custom deployment, many people, the existing customers would know it. And the smart deployment is mainly for customers who would want quick deployment and try and buy the product. So here, once you go to smart deployment, this is the step where it asks to create cloud access profile. So here it gives a cloud formation template which we can download and run in your AWS account. So this is the cloud formation template. So once you run, it basically gives a role ARN. You just have to copy that here so that ADM service gets enough privileges to do the automation task in the AWS account. And once you do it, so basic parameters here, you can see the least number of fields we fill here. You just have to select the region and the VPC. So rest of the infrastructure that is required in the VPC is created by ADM service. So you just select the region, you just select the VPC data to that. And once you select the region, the VPCs that you already have in your account are listed because ADM service already has privilege to do operations, pulls the data. And here you select the VPC. And then you just have to click next. So here you see for the AWS infrastructure, we are only asking 2 questions. That's it. So not more than that because ADM service will work in the background. And on the Autoscale group also, you see very less parameters are being asked, just a name and in which zone we want to launch the deployment, and then deployment type, evaluation and production. So the evaluation option is very new. That's why it's not covered in the demo. But in the live environment, production environment, it is already there. You can just go and try it. And this is for the production stuff. And in the production or in the evaluation, we have to make sure to have already subscribed to the listing. So that's how the marketplace works. You have to subscribe to the listings even before you use it. So we give a reference link from ADM service itself so that we make sure you subscribe to the product that you are going to use. And once you subscribe, you just have to acknowledge that, yes, I have subscribed. And you have to select the instance type. So here for the production, instance type selection has to be done by customers because different instances cost differently. And they really need to know how much they are going to get the bill. So that's why this is a manual step that they need to select. And also based on their application load, they may have to select different instances, different capacity instances. So once you select, the automation starts. AWS environment is prepared. Then the ADM infrastructure is prepared. And then the ADC infrastructure is getting prepared here. So once it gets prepared, the whole infrastructure is prepared. You will be given an option to deploy the application here. So from here, you can just deploy the application. Again, while deploying application, you'll have multiple options whether you really want to deploy external application, internal application, and for FQDN, you want it user-defined, auto-generated. And after this, you will be redirected to Stylebook, wherein you can configure. So here, if you see today, you have to use Stylebooks to deploy your application, but we are enhancing these further to give more flexibility in terms of deployment. Maybe in later webinars, we can cover those. But today, you can use Stylebooks to configure the application. So you select this tile book, you fill up the application configuration details, and then they just will get applied onto the ADC, and it's ready to take the traffic, and you can deliver your application to end user. So this is a simple three-stage deployment process for the smart deployment. So we recommend you to go and try it out. And this deployment is coming soon in Azure, and it will follow GCP also. So that is the smart deployment one. And the another update is ADC support for VMware Cloud on AWS. So we have a lot of customers who deploy Citrix ADC, as I said, Citrix ADC on VMware Hypervisor. And if they are moving to AWS, they can easily move it because we already qualified and published in the marketplace of VMware. Basically, in VMware marketplace, you can't download the software. It is just for the information, publishing, and resources. So basically, you can follow the resources section. It will guide you how to deploy ADC in VMware Cloud on AWS, and you can just follow the instructions and deploy. So those are the key updates that we want to give for ADC in AWS. And with that, let's move to the next section. That will be given by Hari on
Fantastic.
the Azure.
Thanks so much, Arvind. So very relevant and very on point, especially to the 15% of our audience, which are already using ADC on a hypervisor, but have not yet gone into a public cloud. So perhaps VMware in AWS makes sense, or perhaps the smart deploy makes sense, where if you haven't yet explored or deployed or set up something in the cloud, perhaps smart or simplified deploy could simply just get you kickstarted there without having to spend weeks figuring out how many subnets to create, how many resources to allocate. So I think that's a fantastic way to get us jump started into the cloud migration journey. So thank you so much, Arvind. So with that, I'd like to turn the control over to Hari to talk about what we're doing specifically now in Azure. So Hari, are you with us?
Yes, Dave, and thank you so much, Dave and Arvind. Wonderful presentation on how the Smart Deploy works on AWS, and good to hear that it's going to come on Azure too, right? And with the poll, we got a very good number of people using Azure. So I just want to go over the Azure component over here, how Citrix ADC is deployed on Azure. I also see that a lot of people are new to Azure and they have not deployed Citrix ADC. So the benefit of the audience, so I have just included what is there currently on Azure and take it forward what we have developed new and what it can help you in your organization move through as Azure and seamlessly have your application on Azure having high availability, whatnot. To first talk about what is currently available in Azure, as Arvind mentioned on AWS, right? So we have two marketplaces in Azure similar to that on AWS. One is called the commercial and other is the government marketplace. So we are available on both the marketplaces and our offerings are quite similar. Whatever is there on Azure is quite similar to AWS. We have the BYOL offering and the marketplace subscription offering. And we have one more offering that is called specific to Citrix WAF. It is also available on AWS.
So Hari, real quick, we're getting a couple questions real quick. In terms of the licensing, whether you get it in the marketplace or you bring your own, could you just touch real quickly, is there an additional cost to running an ADC in the market or on the cloud? And do you have to, is there also cost in providing your own license as well?
Yeah, so if you bring the license from BYOL, there is a cost. You need to acquire the license. There is a cost to that. And once you bring that license onto Azure, right, you need to also choose an appropriate instance. Let's say you have a 3 GB offering or you got a 3 GB license. You need to associate it with the appropriate Azure instance that you need to deploy on Azure. The Azure instance cost, that's probably from $50 to $100 per month. There is a cost associated with that. Apart from that, there is no other cost, right?
Fantastic.
Yeah, and in case of same in case of subscription offering, when you go, there is a pay-as-you-go prices already published in the marketplace. You choose, let's say, a VPX 3000 Platinum, which is costing probably close to a $4. You need to pay $4, and also you definitely need to pay the instance cost, which will come to probably $50 to $100 depending on the instance that you choose. Good question. Uh, Moving forward, so in case of Azure, we support high availability and clustering. In case of high availability, we use ALB in the front. And why I'm just repeating this, because a lot of our customers are asking this question, why we need ALB in the front. The reason for that is that we do not have layer 2 control. In any cloud, including Azure, layer 2 control is not with us. So the traditional on-prem ADC uses layer 2 protocol to have the sync. As this is not available, the only option for us to do ALB in the front. And with the ALB, the traffic between the primary and the secondary is switched over. As and when the primary fails, it will be switching over to the secondary. In case of clustering, we use the clustering as part of the Autoscale solution. Just as Arvind described the smart deployment, he used the Autoscale solution. And similarly, Isha is also going to talk more about ADM, right? So ADM is the central control plane, which we use to create an Autoscale group on Azure. Using that, it'll be a cluster pair that is created on different availability zones that you choose in Azure. With respect to performance, the maximum single instance performance that we can currently support is 3 Gbps. And also, if you are using a clustered pair, we can go maximum up to 96 GB in an autoscale solution. That is tested. And with regards to the theoretical thing, it can go 32 or 96 into 3, kind of close to 270 gig we can do in theoretical way. With regards to hybrid deployment, we do support Azure Stack. It's kind of if you have both Azure and Azure Stack environment, you can be rest assured that we support our Citrix ADC offering both on Azure and Azure Stack. So you can have one product doing the load balancing, WAF, bot management, everything in your whole organization. Right now, we do only support standalone, but HA support on Azure Stack is going to come soon. With regards to automation, we have ARM templates which are available on the Azure Marketplace offering for HA in availability set and availability zone. And also, we have it available on our GitHub repository. One important thing to note that if you use our ARM templates from the GitHub repository, then you don't need to bother about having a resource group which does not have any resources. So when you go and use the ARM template from the Azure Marketplace, the resources should be in the resource group should not be there. Any resources should not be there in the resource group. But when you're using from GitHub, even if some resources are there in resource group, it will go ahead and deploy Citrix ADC instance in HA pair or standalone. We also support Terraform templates and Ansible templates. We have the GitHub repository wherein you can readily use those playbooks available over there to configure your whole environment in Azure. And also, you will be able to connect to our ADM using the Terraform scripts and invoke a style book from the ADM and configure your application onto your Azure. I will talk about those things later in the slide. Moving on, the first and the foremost, the question that I get from customers is that, hey, what is the recommended Azure instance that you need to deploy Citrix ADC on? As you know, Citrix ADC is a very purpose-built appliance, right? It's an appliance, it's having a FreeBSD kernel, and you need to choose an appropriate instance on Azure. So the recommended one is that if you have a license, let's say VPX 3000, which is a 3 gig license, we suggest using standard D8SV3 instance, and it has 8 vCPUs. So choosing an instance depends on the license type that you use and also the instance throughput that it supports. So even though the difference probably you might, if you're already into the ADC world, you might have known that VPC 1000 and VPC 3000 uses the same data packet engines, right? It is three, right? But the throughput is different. So if you choose, go and check the Azure instance, D4S V3, the maximum throughput that D4S V3 can support is only 2 gig. Hence, we do not support D4S V3 for VPX 3000, and we support next higher tier, which is D8S V3 for 3 gig instance, right? Likewise for VPX 10 and VPX 200, we just require a 2 vCPU instance, which is supported by D2S V3. Moving on to support for Azure Stack, right? Here, before I just go here, I just want to give a gist about this backend autoscaling. We have been supporting backend autoscaling with virtual machine scale set. That's a service in the Azure for a long time, right? So virtual machine scale set, what it does is if you configure a web server and put it into virtual machine scale set and provide a threshold parameters like, hey, if it reaches 50% memory, then spin up one more web server. So that's what the VMSS does, right? So what we had integrated before in our backend autoscaling solution is that we will detect a new web server being created. We will detect the IP and associate that IP into our service group. So that was the integration with VMSS. This integration is new. A lot of our customers were asking that we don't want much of automation, but we do want to control the cost, right? And controlling the cost on Azure depends on the tags. So that's what Azure recommends. So in case a lot of customers saying that I can create instance myself rather than VMSS creating for me, but I want to tag that instances. And if I tag the instances, it should be automatically added to the service group. And this feature exactly does that. If you already have one web server and tagged as a name value pair, and you create a same web server again, a new web server, and tag the same name value pair as is in the first web server, we will detect that and automatically add the new web server to our service group. So basically, previously, if two web servers are already there and Citrix ADC was load balancing that, once you add the new web server and tag it appropriately, the load balancing will be done for the 3 web servers now. This is a very good feature wherein it came from customers and we developed and a lot of our customers are using. Moving on to the Azure Stack, as I told about the hybrid option available with Azure. So in case of hybrid scenarios, Azure provides Azure Cloud and Azure Stack Hub. So we work on both Azure Stack and Azure Stack Hub. You will be able to configure a standalone instances currently on Azure Stack Hub. But as I mentioned, our HA solution is soon going to be available. So if you're using a hybrid environment for Azure, you'll be able to use Citrix ADC for all your load balancing and app security needs. App security here, I mean about WAF and bot management, everything. And of course, in this thing, I have also shown or depicted GSLB. So you can make sure that Citrix ADC is configured with GSLB also, so that you have a good global service load balancer in place. And wherever your user base resides, they will be having an optimal path to the resources closer to them. Dave, do we have any questions that I need to answer over here, and I can move along?
No, I think you're doing well. I think the only question seems to be, is there a need to have an Azure load balancer in place? And is there any plan to work around that? So here you're showing no need for it, but the question came up that with HA, ALB is needed. So there was just that question came up.
That I covered over here, why ALB is needed. We're working on different solutions, but it is taking 3 or 4 minutes, which is not an optimal way to do an HA. So the solution exists with AWS, right? Currently with the private IP movement, we were trying to do the same thing with Azure also, but Azure API is right now taking a lot of time to just do the flip to the new primary. So, and 3 minutes, we feel that it's not an optimal solution to do an HA. So we're still maintaining ALB in place. When we find an optimal solution, we will definitely switch ALB out.
That's great news. Thanks, Hari.
Yeah. The another integration that a lot of our customers were asking was for Azure Monitor, right? So they use Azure, they know how Azure works. They have Azure Monitor configured over there. They want to make sure all the instances that are there in Azure, there is a single place where they can see how the instance is performing. What is the CPU utilization? What is the memory utilization? What is the throughput utilization? So with that, we integrated with Azure Monitor so that we can provide this data to the Azure Monitor and it can be projected in the dashboard. And those are the management CPU, the PE CPU, and the memory throughput. Everything is now sent to the Azure Monitor. The one thing to note here is that to enable this thing, you will definitely need what is called the application credentials. As I see here, the application ID, application API, access a secret key. So those are needed to get this to fruitification, right? So once you configure that, we will be knowing the whole of the Azure deployment that is there, and then we can send the logs to the Azure Monitor to project it in its dashboard. Moving on to next is the Azure AD integration. So we've been slowly seeing that a lot of customers who are primarily having their LDAP infrastructure, which was basically Active Directory, and they're slowly moving to Azure, are also moving to Azure AD, right? They're syncing the whole LDAP infrastructure or the Active Directory infrastructure as a read-only case in the Azure AD, and they want to use the modern authentication. Previously, in case of Active Directory, they were only using it for LDAP and nothing much. And internally, when they were using ADC or any other load balancing type, they were using for Kerberos. So with this, our integration with ADC, we act as the SAML SP, right? And the identity provider here is the Active Directory. So Azure Active Directory. So whenever a request comes to ADC, we redirect the request to Azure Active Directory. The user signs in with his credentials for Azure Active Directory and gives us a SAML token. We parse the token and appropriately take whatever is necessary to do the SSO with your application. So this is a classic use case how this is developed. And this request also came from our Azure AD team, and we had implemented this thing in last Ignite and projected very well, wherein the Azure AD team said that there are a lot of Azure AD customers who want this integration. So think about a legacy app which is having only NTLM, LDAP, or Kerberos authentication, and still the company wants to go for modern authentication for SAML and OAuth. So with this thing, if an application is having the older form of authentication, they can still use that authentication and move to the Citrix ADC integration, wherein Citrix ADC will take care of the old authentication mechanism and still get a token from the modern auth, which is SAML from AD, and parse the token and send the attribute as a user agent string to the particular application that you want to do an SSO with. So very good solution. A lot of our customers are using. If you have a need, please let us know. All the documentation are in place. You can either reach out to your Azure AD counterpart, and you can also work with us to make sure the solution is in place in your organization. With that, if there are no other questions, Dave, I would like to hand over it to Vikas.
I think we're good. I think one of the questions that comes up frequently, and maybe this would be really good with GCP, but one of the questions that keeps coming up is there a performance benefit to running an ADC in a cloud versus something in-house?
Yes, there are a lot. Let's let Vikas take over, and then I have one more round. Probably I can answer that question later. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay. So Vikas, it looks like we are seeing your screen. We don't hear you yet though. Are you on audio?
Okay. Yes, I
Okay,
am. And
we got you.
thank you, Dave. And thanks, Hari, for setting the background and context with Azure. Hello, everyone. My name is Vikas Mathur. I'm part of the networking product management team here at Citrix. My responsibilities cover all of the public cloud platforms, but my primary focus is on GCP. And that's what I'm going to be talking to you about. Uh, just as a background, all of our ADC offerings have similar set of capabilities across the platforms, but there are some differences in the ways each of the platforms behave and the capabilities each of the platforms provide. There may be some feature gap as we put all the capabilities together on each platform. Let me talk to you about GCP, and then you would have a well-rounded view of all of our offerings across these three major platforms. Okay. So let me just quickly go in there. All right. So let's see what we have in the GCP ADC offerings today. Just like the other two platforms, we have the subscription as well as the BYOL offering. BYOL offering is called customer license. If you look in the marketplace, that's the easiest way to find it. And we have all of the three editions of ADC available for all the offerings. So depending on the kind of capability you're looking for, you can select the appropriate edition depending on your needs. We also have the Express edition available. This is a edition that is sort of limited in by bandwidth, but it's also free to use forever. It doesn't require any paid or license or anything. So if you want to try it out for some time, or even use it for very tiny small deployments, you could use that. On the performance side of things, we have several subscription offerings which are bandwidth based. As you can see here, right from 10 Mbps, 200 Mbps up to 5 Gbps. And then if you're going to use the BYOL offering, you can actually go up to 10 Gbps on using one instance of ADC. So on that platform, on GCP, basically the maximum performance today we can achieve is about 10 Gbps, but that requires you to use the BYOL offering. We have the subscription offerings if up to 5G bandwidth is good enough for your scenarios. In terms of some of the other major capabilities, we have the backend Autoscale available, and then we have the high availability options available for HA kind of scenarios. And very importantly, recently we launched this ADM Agent for GCP, which enables you to utilize the pool capacity and also make use of all of the management, monitoring, etc., that you get out of ADM. So we'll talk about all of these as we go into the rest of the presentation. All right, so for HA, I need not spend too much time describing what HA is, except to say that the HA is available in two flavors on GCP at this point. We have one which is like the external IP movement, and one with LIS IP movement. The second one is more for scenarios where a firewall is front-ending the traffic. And other than that, the HA works pretty much the same as you would expect it to, with the secondary node taking over when the primary fails. Little more detail on the same in terms of the HA with the external IP or with the LIS IP. So with the external IP, as you're seeing, the external IPs are configured on the ADCs. And one of them is active and the other passive mode. And then when the failover happens, then the external IP switches over from the primary to secondary, and the traffic continues over with the secondary. So it's fairly simple sort of deployment, and configuration steps are available in our documentation that you can review in detail if that is of your interest. The scenario on the right-hand side is actually was developed based on some customer interest, and then we found that other customers also have similar scenarios. This is where there is a firewall front-ending the traffic from the internet, so something like a Palo Alto or some firewall. And then in this case, the mechanism which we use is to switch over LAS IPs. And in terms of the actual use, it works the same way, but the internal mechanism is a little bit different just because the firewall front-ending the traffic, and that requires the HA to operate in a slightly different, to be configured in a slightly different manner. But we have both these modes available in case you're using a firewall, or if you're not going to use a firewall, then you can use the standard HA with the external IP movement. Okay. Moving on, the backend autoscale capability I mentioned earlier. This is very similar to, I think Hari referred to as the VMSS capability in Azure, where the backend applications are autoscaled using GCP platform capabilities. So just to understand it very clearly, the ADCs themselves are not getting autoscaled here, but it is the applications which are getting autoscaled. And as GCP autoscales up or down those applications, ADC can manage those applications and direct traffic to each of those instances in the instance group. The managed instance group in GCP is the equivalent of VMSS kind of thing in Azure. But basically, it's a service which GCP provides for auto-scaling applications. And if that is configured appropriately, then ADC can manage all of those instances in a managed group and provide load balancing across those instances. So it's fairly easy to configure that and use it. Now, note with that, as you know, the reason I mentioned that ADCs are not getting autoscale in this scenario is to be very clear that the performance which you're going to get out of this is going to be limited by the performance on a single, maximum performance on a single instance, which at this point is 10 Gbps. We are working on the complete autoscale solution where ADCs can also be autoscaled, but for now, you can use it in the backend autoscale scenario. And this is just sort of a deployment, typical deployment in how this looks like. The ADC VPX front-ending the traffic, and managed instance group having all the instances which are managed by GCP. The ADC can, of course, auto-discover these instances as they come into the MIG, depending on the scale thresholds and scale parameters. And as and when the scale up or scale down events happen, the ADC can figure that out and manage its service accordingly. Just a quick note on how to set this up. Basically, you need to do two key things. One is you provision the backend autistic scaling group in the GCP console, which is sort of an independent activity. Really, no direct connection with ADC, but this is just a GCP related thing you do, and then you would set it up in the ADC by enabling the cloud APIs, providing the right permissions. So that the ADC can actually detect the MIG, and then once it is detected, it can discover all of the instances and make it part of the autoscale group. So two distinct steps, but both fairly straightforward and easy to use. I do want to touch upon the ADM agent for GCP. I mentioned briefly earlier. The biggest benefit of the agent is that if you have purchased pool licenses, now you can actually deploy them in GCP using the agent, and that provides you all of the flexibility that pool licensing provides. You can bring a part of the pool into GCP and keep part in your on-premise environment if you're going to set up a hybrid kind of scenario, or move them based on other criteria that you might have. In addition to providing or enabling the pool capacity, the agent also sends back some critical information which will be useful for troubleshooting and analytics, and all of those can be accessed through the ADM service. So the entire power of ADM service in terms of analytics, troubleshooting, application monitoring, and so on is now available on GCP and for all of the ADCs deployed in GCP using the ADM agent. All right, I think that is really all I wanted to cover, Dave. And
Yeah, great news. That's awesome. Then sharing, very cool to see the new work on GCP and the incredible performance that we get there too. All right, thanks Vikas for that. Now let's switch it back over to Arvind, and I can see your screen already, Arvind. So if you would care to tell us what we can do more with Autoscale.
Sure. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Vikas. I think some of you have asked, like, is that what you presented for AWS? So this is more content for AWS. And this content is applicable for AWS and Azure also. So we have some updates on the Autoscale solution. If you have already used Autoscale solution, then you can relate to them. And even without that, you can relate. But if you have already used Autoscale solution, then you can try these new features in the same solution. So the first one is Autoscale group for internal applications. If you see primarily, I mean, in the existing Autoscale solution was supporting for external apps, where the apps are being used by external users. A lot of traffic is for the external users. For internal traffic, for the internal applications, usually the traffic is less, or the traffic patterns are known. That's what some of our customers say. But many of our customers said, maybe we want to start with very minimal capacity and then scale based on the demand, even for internal applications. So that's where we brought in the support for internal applications also, wherein you don't have to use the public IP for the Autoscale solution. And for that, we designed a new screen. You would see the new screen selecting external or internal in the Autoscale workflow. The next one is the spare node. So here we started hearing some of the requirements from customers saying, we know our traffic pattern, saying that there will be a traffic spike. How can I make sure Autoscale happens faster? Like, because they're concerned of the provisioning time, or sometimes provisioning on the public cloud might take more time depending on the time that you are using, depending on the type of instance type you are using. So that was the concern, and some of the customers also said, like, how do we decrease the provisioning time? Basically, like, they want to make sure the Autoscale happens far quicker than it normally takes. So the solution is the spare node. So wherein, if you see here, there will be an Autoscale group with ADC nodes, active ADC nodes, acting as an Autoscale cluster. And there will be another ADC node which is outside this cluster, and it is in the shutdown state. So there is no traffic, there is no configuration that is getting synchronized. So when a need for new ADC capacity comes up, so this ADC node gets started, and it just gets added into the cluster. So you save a lot of time on the provisioning. So that provisioning time you have saved, and always you have a spare node as a backup in the stop state, so that you don't get charged for that, but you will get the instance when you need it. And the another is the seamless upgrade for ADM Autoscale group. We have really seen some of the application deployments of customers wherein they try to deploy applications across availability zones, multiple availability zones. So if they are using Autoscale for such deployments, you will have ADC clusters across availability zones. So you can have so many nodes, tens of nodes spanning across availability zones. And if you have to upgrade them, it is a nightmare if you don't use any automation tool. So ADM is the automation tool here. So you just have to select the ASG, define when you want to upgrade that, and you can also configure how you need to get the execution report. So this way, you don't have to bother about what all nodes got upgraded, failed, when they got upgraded, if there is any execution problem. So you don't have to monitor. The ADM will do all that, and it will give you the report, whether it is success, failure, if it has failed, why it has failed, where it has failed. So all those details are captured in the reports. So with this, the upgrade for the Autoscale group is pretty much simplified. So you don't have to build your own automation frameworks, or you don't have to build your monitoring techniques. So these are some of the Autoscale enhancements. We are bringing in more enhancements in the Autoscale. So maybe tune in for the later webinars, and we'll give you more. So those are the quick updates for the Autoscale, which are relevant for both AWS and Azure. And with that, again, we will shift back to Hari. to hear more on the use case trend.
Fantastic. Thanks, Arvind. Very relevant and shows what more we can do specifically in AWS and also Azure. So Hari, we see your screen again. Welcome back.
Yes, thank you, Dave, and thank you, Erwin, for passing the baton here. So here I'm going to talk about the different use cases that we can deploy Citrix ADC on Azure over here, or AWS or GCP for that matter. And as you know, because of the pandemic, what has happened is the whole cloud adoption has skyrocketed, and a lot of our customers are definitely deploying the Citrix ADC onto different public clouds, right? So here's a story wherein you want to make sure your disaster recovery is available on any public cloud of your choice, right? So basically, because of the pandemic, what happened as the workers shift to work from home, right? More and more demand was there on their on-prem infrastructure. They wanted to make sure there is a disaster recovery solution available in case the capacity is kind of 100% on the on-prem. They will be able to quickly switch over to the public cloud. That's how they started first. So this is the initial phase of public cloud adoption, wherein you're thinking about your backup and restore strategy. Okay, and then you're wanting to make sure that you do not create one more data center, and then slowly move to the cloud. So this is the initial phase of moving to the public cloud as we speak, right? And there are a lot of benefits of moving to the public cloud. You do not need to bother about your capex over here budget. So very awesome thing wherein DR solution is the first to move to the public cloud. This is the way, and it's making sure that your whole investment is secure, right? In case of something happens in the on-prem, when the threshold is reached, you can switch over to your disaster recovery solution. So then the next piece of the use case is kind of data center expansion or demand scaling or cloud bursting. This is the same thing. So a lot of our customers started with disaster recovery story on the public cloud. Now think about that. The disaster recovery is already there, but now they are started thinking about I want to expand this thing. My data center is there, which is taking 100% load. Disaster recovery site is not taking any load. How can I just load balance this in a kind of an active scenario, right? And then when they started thinking through, they started creating a Citrix ADC Autoscale cluster on Azure and AWS. So with that one, and then they started distributing the traffic across the on-prem and the public cloud. With that, so they introduce a tier 1 to be having a GSLB in the front, and it can switch 50-50 traffic. And as in more and more traffic grew for them, and they started making sure the cloud is handling more, because of the Autoscale, they are handling more traffic. And then as and when the traffic increases, they are also making sure that they use only appropriate resources that are needed. If the resources are not needed, it will be automatically scaled in. So scale out happens when the resources are needed, and the scale in happens when the resources are not needed. So this is the use case number 2. Think about the same use case number 2 in case of you're managing your whole cloud solution or Citrix solutions. Now think about our customers moving to Citrix Cloud. And Citrix Cloud is having the virtual apps and desktop service. It has an ADM service. It has Citrix endpoint management, SharePoint, Citrix Analytics, a lot of these components, right, in one Citrix Cloud. And then you're having your own data center, which is having most of these VDA components. And then to manage those VDA components, the entry point will be always a Citrix MPX or SDX or a VPX. Now moving to the cloud, you're making sure you have an express route for Azure, direct connect for the AWS, and also direct connect or interconnect for GCP, whatever the cloud preference that you have. Once it is established, you're making sure that you have your VDAs on these both data center, on-prem and the cloud, and you're making sure there is a GSLB which is connecting these two data centers, the public cloud and the private cloud. So your users can reach to any of the data centers, whether it's public cloud or the on-prem, based on the proximity and a lot of other features that the GSLB offers on Citrix ADC. So this is the extension of your use case just for Citrix solution. And coming to the third, thinking about expansion, right? So one of the better use cases for this, if you are moving from a hybrid, you are moving to a hybrid solution from on-prem to the public cloud, will be the better user experience. As I mentioned before, the Autoscale obviously make sure that you have less resources on the public cloud, and as and when you want more resources, it'll be scaled out, and of course, it'll be also scaled in. So with that, you're making sure the end user who is trying to access your services gets a seamless user experience, and any global user. So depending on where they are, there will be a kind of a next pop of AWS or Azure or GCP. So they are going to go to that pop and then coming back to your Citrix infrastructure that is configured. So which it means that you get a better user experience for your global users across regions, right? And this also means that you are connecting your on-prem data center with a direct connect or express route and GCP interconnect to make sure there is a connectivity exists between your on-prem DC and the public cloud provider. The fourth and the final thing that I want to talk about is application delivery and the security, right? So we are in a kind of API-driven economy, right? More and more users are accessing, and with that means that there are a lot of bad bot and good bot, and everything is there, right? So you will be able to use our single appliance, which serves as a load balancing provider, content switching provider, WAF, and bot management capabilities entirely into one. You are enabling these security features on the Citrix ADC appliance, and then making sure that it is available as a active pair. Means you also enable GSLV over there, so you can have an on-prem solution and a cloud solution. You're making sure your application is available 100% of the time. Now, one of the questions that they've asked that how this is important, right? Why do I need to use Citrix ADC onto the public cloud? This is one great benefit of Citrix ADC. This is one software appliance, only one appliance, which has all the features that are inbuilt onto it. You just need to enable the feature and get going with it, right? And if you use any other public cloud provider, for these things, you will have different services that you need to enable to get all these benefits. So more the services, more the cost. So with that, Dave, do you want to add to this thing to make it a conversation, or do you see any questions that we can take it before I move on to with Isha for her delivery?
I think this is good. I believe we're going to take a small break to run a quick poll just to change up the pace before we transition over to Isha. There's a lot of questions in the Q&A panel. They look very focused. One of the questions, I guess, is just more of a statement of fact. We're looking into DR, and so the content looks good. So again, it looks very relevant. And if you wouldn't mind hanging back for a little bit and trying to get to some of the extra questions that came in, there's a lot of interest in the content specifically that you shared with us over your several presentations.
Definitely. And before we do that, there'll be a poll. So if you can initiate that poll, we can just go through that.
Absolutely. So Carol, would you mind running us the second round of polling today?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Sorry, it's not letting me launch it. Can you launch it on your end?
Let me give that a shot here. So we're going to go ahead and change up the pace a little bit. So if you were dozing off or whatnot, if you'd kindly come back over and circle back and let us know what you think here on this quick question. So we're looking to see if you've deployed a Citrix ADC of your choice on the cloud and whether you would consider deploying the Citrix ADC using Now, we kind of covered this in one of the quick questions that I put on our presenters on the spot, which is, is there a difference between marketplace, bring your own licensing, and what would be the benefits of either? Hopefully that answer came out well and clear. So now we'd just like to get a little poll here and an idea of, would you prefer the simplified approach of marketplace subscription licensing where it all goes into one bill and one account? Would you rather control that yourself under one business? So it looks like we've got about 40% of you have chimed in so far. So we'll give it just a moment for any last thoughts here. But it looks like pretty much you guys are very interested in managing the licenses yourselves. So I'll go ahead and close out that poll. And it looks like by pretty far here, it looks like most of you are interested in managing your own licenses. But there is an interesting thing here where you said both. What that indicates to me is perhaps you're looking at maybe using bring your own licenses for production, and perhaps maybe doing something like a trial or proof of concept or testing something out with the simplicity of marketplace. So both of those look very relevant and on target for you. So I'm going to launch one final poll today before we jump into our final topic with Isha. And this one is, what is the major inclination you have for being in or moving to the public cloud? So what is your primary motivating factor here? Are you looking at for DR, which is what we'll get into in just a moment with Isha, or are you looking for just need to expand? You've outgrown the data center or you need more high availability? Or are you actually looking to close out your data centers and move completely into the cloud? We'd be very interested to get your take on this because we do see a lot of interest across the board. A lot of people are at different journeys. A lot of people have expressed interest to move straight into the cloud, but it may be a few years off. So we're just curious, where are you at in your journey today as our loyal customers? All right, so it looks like we have just about half of you who have chimed in. So I'm going to go ahead and close out the poll and show you what that looks like. So it looks like many of you are moving into the cloud already for DR. You're also looking to expand in the cloud, meaning keeping your private on-prem data center running and then just using the cloud for temporary or unique applications. And then some of you, very few of you are looking to get rid of the private data center entirely. So that's very relevant, very interesting to see your transition and your journey into the public cloud. So thank you for completing the poll with us. So with that, I'd like to turn over now to our final presenter today, Isha, to talk to us all about DR with the ADC. So Isha, can you hear me?
Yeah, Dave.
All right, I can hear you well.
Yeah. And so
we're just waiting to see your screen.
Okay. So can you see my screen?
We have it, yes.
Okay, great. So should I get started?
Go for it.
Yeah. So hello, everybody. As we've received your poll answers and your inclination towards the cloud journey. So with this last final topic, you will have certain takeaways from this session. So let's go ahead and understand that as the network of today, as I'm here, and we have seen across that our workloads are being migrated from on-prem to cloud and spread across distributed networks. So I'll help you understand the holistic VPX deployment lifecycle in the cloud and how ADM service overcomes the challenges faced at each and every stage, making life of a network admin easier. So as you all must have worked with Citrix ADC and must be familiar about Citrix ADC VPX form factor, which is nothing but a virtual appliance that can be hosted on a wide variety of virtualization and cloud platforms. And each of the VPX deployment lifecycle involves 7 major phases. So to begin with, let's first talk about the day 0 deployment, which includes provisioning your Citrix ADC VPX flexibly on a variety of platforms, be it on-prem or different public cloud environments such as AWS, Azure, GCP that we have gone throughout our session right now. And after your provision, you need to license your VPX. That defines input and the feature set to be enabled. Further, for deployment, you need to first have your network configurations into place, and then you deploy your applications which are to be load balanced by this ADC. So moving further, after you're done with your deployment, the network admins has to continually ensure high availability of VPX instance, whether they are on-prem or distributed across different cloud environments. So at all times, a network admin has to manage and monitor ADC behavior by collecting certain logs and data originating from these instances, serving as a building block to perform analytics and get visibility into all the aspects and get useful insights. So last but not the least, so as you move towards your growth journey, your cloud adoption journey, catering to ever evolving business needs, you would want to move your workload to other data centers or cloud. So migration comes into place here. Now, as a network admins, efficiency is degraded day by day because the workloads in a cloud environment becomes more complex and heterogeneous. So here I come and explain each of the challenges faced by when we deploy our ADCs into different cloud environments and different different data centers. So as a let us understand what challenges they are going through and how can our ADM solution help when we are dealing with day zero deployments. Number one would be inconsistent and inefficient provisioning. While provisioning a Citrix ADC instance across different data centers, each and every instance has to be provisioned individually, making it failure prone and much more manual process, as there could be insufficient resource planning, network reachability could be an issue, which brings in the high dependency on network and admins to manage each and every instance all by themselves. Secondly, manual licensing methodology. So here, while your each and every instance has to be configured and has to be allocated a manual license. So here, you will not be able to upgrade or change on the go the licenses, and with the flexible business needs where your capacity could have increased or your traffic needs have become spiked up. So there, the licenses are so tightly coupled that you cannot rehost it ever or upgrade it at any point in time. Thirdly, for the deployment phase, it will be highly difficult to manually replicate ADC configurations or miss out on some configs when dealing with the network. And troubleshooting these highly error-prone deployments will take most of the time of a network admin. Moreover, the app configuration is much more cumbersome because they need to continually deploy applications for each and every new user as and when they come. So making it a difficult task for them to ensure application availability, performance, and security. So with that, ADM service offers a robust analytical tool at your fingertips. So the solutions offered here for provisioning is with ADM service, you can easily and seamlessly have a single touch point provisioning your instances across different cloud platforms, be it AWS, Azure, GCP, and it is much more simplified and easier deployment because you have so many ARM templates, Terraform templates, and platform messaging services delivering the elasticity to customers when using public cloud. And then you get the complete visibility into the appropriate resources such as storage disk, number of CPUs, etc., making it error proof. So here you also have the auto-scaling feature of ADM, which ensures that your application always has the right number of Citrix ADC VPXs up and running at all time, irrespective of traffic needs. It offers automatic DNS management. Whenever new Citrix ADC instances are added, the domain names are updated automatically. And during a scale-in, gracefully removed, avoiding the loss of client connections. The front-end autoscale groups, IT and operation control, they decide when and how to scale out or scale in, provisioning needed, and flexibility to maintain efficiency. And for backend, you have your applications into place such that they can handle the high traffic needs, which has been explained throughout in in Azure, GCP, etc. So those examples as well as the benefits we have already gone through. And also, interestingly, ADM service can have multiple partitions that could be on multiple Citrix ADC instances. So ADM service can handle those based on the role-based access control, with which it removes the bottlenecks from the virtual and network admins to segregate their duties manually and customize the dashboard as per the authorization scopes and access policies. Also, if you want to go through the GSLB deployments across your different distributed network, so here you can also use your GLB stylebooks. Now, moving further for the licensing. So ADM acts as a centralized licensing server to overcome the challenges of the network admin. ADM service has extremely simplified licensing framework that includes SECO, which is majorly related to on-demand capacity, and with pooled capacity, you can provision based on the bandwidth and the vCPUs. So this kind of allocation of licenses can be done based on what is your requirement, whether it's on demand, whether it's bandwidth, or it's number of CPUs. Also, in certain scenarios, you would want to upgrade your capacity. So there you can extend your licensing to a higher capacity as per the need. So this provision is provided by ADM service. Further, for deploying, you have single touchpoint configuration control such that you ensure conformance to the desired configurations. With config job feature, replication of ADC configurations across different platforms is definitely consistent enough. And also, ADM automatically polls the configuration audits every 10 hours to look for the configuration changes that occur on ADC instances, and thereby making detection and troubleshooting quicker. And with Stylebooks feature of ADM helps the admins to have easy app deployment and migrations, such that enhancing, extending, and simplifying the configuration and management of ADC. So for example, if you have to deploy a single feature across all your ADCs, or you can also go for an enterprise-wide application deployment, as you have already all the templates ready into place. So thus ensuring application availability, performance, and security. Moving further, the ongoing activities after you have done your deployment would cause different issues while you are monitoring, and how you handle those metrics to have actionable insights. So here, let's see the challenges. Number one would be inefficient management. So the major concern that haunts network admins after ADCs are deployed across hybrid multi-cloud setup is how to manage such a heterogeneous and evolving network instance, as there is no centralized process to do so, thus making it time-consuming and complex. And instead, they have to continually monitor each and every instance due to lack of integrated reporting and complex and manual disaster recovery. So in case your instance fails, the whole application goes for a toss, and thus onus lies on the admins, so such that they'll have to find out a stable point, and there they have to take the backup and keep it handy and restore it at a later point in time when the instances fail. Secondly, for the analytics, they do not get insufficient. They get insufficient insights on capacity issues, because due to fluctuating demand catering to high traffic needs, it is difficult to get appropriate insights on the capacity issues or set threshold limits to predict and correlate application performance deviations in case the capacity is underutilized or overutilized. Another challenge, there's absolutely no connect from ADC to app. So therefore, there is no visibility into the application health and performance, and there is neither visibility to the application health, nor there is insufficient data to, and also there is insufficient data to troubleshoot issues. So it will be very difficult to understand which app is behaving bad or underperforming, and what is the reason behind it. So for that, ADM service again steps in and solves all of these challenges by providing a cool feature set for simplifying the life of network admins. So number one, for manage and monitoring, it provides a simplified workflow. So SSL certificate management to help you get complete visibility into the SSL certificates and keep close tab on the certificate issuer details, algorithms, certificate expiry, and adherence to the automated policies. Further, it manages the configuration to perform configuration tasks such as creating replication of configuration changes across all your network, system upgrades, and other maintenance activities on multiple instances. A very important tool that is ADM's alerts, automated alerts and notification feature that notifies for any events on your managed ADC instances over emails, Slack, etc. So it's really interesting to know that if you have created an event rule for instances that involve disk failures or if a license or certificate expires, so you will be notified, and you also want to be notified till the issue is resolved. So here you can opt to receive repeated email notification about those events. So you'll be updated with all the notifications and alerts. Also, ADM acts as a logging server and provides network reports that helps admins manage large number of instances by collecting different logs from these ADC instances. These logs could be syslog, audit log, etc. And Citrix ADM, it by inventory management, it does instance backup polling using Nitro calls, SSH, SCP protocol, and backs up the current state of your managed ADC instance, and thus automatically backup and restore configurations of your instances in case of failure. Further, for analytics, you have proper ADC infrastructure planning, that is ADM's feature. So here you have huge range of analytics which allows admins to have an easy and scalable way to look into the various insights of Citrix ADC VPX data to describe, predict, and improve application performance. So number one, with infrastructure analytics, admins can view the instance details, understand CPU needs, memory usage, etc. So for example, if one application consumes a lot of CPU, admin can view from the dashboard, and from that he can get useful insights from the detection message and the recommendations he can apply to move it to a separate VPX with dedicated resources, and thus ensuring appropriate resource allocation to overcome capacity related issues. So in this later in this section we will give a brief demo on this. So moving further, for the self-service diagnostics, admins can identify and troubleshoot the issues. And GeoMap in Citrix ADM provides you with a graphical representation of your sites and drills down your network monitoring experience. And these sites could be spread across different places in worldwide. So it could be that you have your one site assigned to AWS, one to Azure, and other to an on-premise. So what GeoMaps does is it helps you to understand the trends in application usage across various geographical locations. After collecting certain amount of syslog, AppFlow, SNMP, and any such data originating from the managed instance. For visibility, it provides connected analytics across ADCs and apps that gives you complete information on your application health, score, top issues, performance, security, etc. And the global service graph feature that helps you to get a holistic visualization of the clients to infrastructure to application view, enabling you to act upon these actionable metrics of the services in a graphical representation. Further, the app usage analytics, whether it can be peak or lean, can help you decide if you have to find out, if the admins have to find out the best maintenance window. So they can look for the lean usage analytics, and if they want to monitor that what is the amount of traffic that is being received, or rate limit the number of requests coming in, they can use the peak usage analytics. So further, let's move on to the last section where we have growth with evolving business needs. So the challenges with this section is that with migration, with cloud revolution, data centers are shrinking and customers are embracing virtualized infrastructure to facilitate device consolidation, reduce cost, and shuffle resources on cloud to rapidly respond to business needs. But while moving your application to the cloud, the components that are part of your applications, they are increasing, becoming more distributed, and needs to be dynamically managed. So the process to migrate is highly complex and cumbersome because it involves disintegrated approach of migrating configurations over different distributed data centers or cloud platforms, and thereby inability to migrate your licenses. So here, to license your instances while migration, you need to deprovision your instance and then relicense it. So the solutions that ADM service fits in here, with ADM, you can migrate to cloud or other data centers in a seamless and automatic way, as it has amazing features such as style books that fits in well with the principles of infrastructure as a code, that will enable admins to create multiple configs that can be deployed on one or more ADC instances and can also be migrated among instances irrespective of the platform. And once you have migrated your instances, so licensing is the important aspect that you have to take care in next. So after instances are migrated, the ADM accelerates service deployments with pooled licensing features, which is being per vCPU support, or it provides per VM or per capacity bandwidth, and CICO, that is check-in, check-out, based on demand. So when additional services are hosted on cloud, it is easy to change the allocation of the device application menu and change the throughput. So the user can check in license associated with the instance to be migrated and thereby check out from the ADM's pool of licenses. You can also scale your applications better as you now use the infrastructure on demand. It also provides the ability to quickly switch from one cloud to another to take advantage of the best offering of each provider. Further, let me take you through a demo of
Isha, sorry to interrupt. Dave, I know we're well over time.
Yes.
Do you want to continue with the demo, or?
I think we're okay. We have we're just past the 90-minute mark. I think we could go just a few more minutes, and I think we'll wrap up. We're pretty much at the end as far as I can tell, so we're good on time.
Okay. Sure. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. So I'll just start with the demo. So this demo majorly focuses on ADM's feature of infrastructure analytics. So here, infrastructure analytics provides complete ADC infrastructure in a single view. It collects data across all ADC instances and quantifies it over instance score to depict the health of these ADC instances. So in one glimpse, you will be able to understand whether your instances are doing good or need review or are in a critical state. So with the help of easy filters alongside, you can simply drill down on the ones which needs review or are in a critical state and focus on those. So here we can see with different color codings that our yellow and the red marks are actually in review or critical stage. So let's come back to the overall view from the settings. This visual representation in a circle pack view, you can use tabular view if you want, whichever is easier for you. So here we can see different instances available and the instance size representation with the help of number of virtual servers configured on the instances. And you can group or cluster the circle pack view based on different levels. So level 1 would be 4 sites: USA, India, Australia, AWS. Grouping in level 2 could be selected based on the type. So here we're selecting the form factors. So it separates out the VPX and MPX. We also have additional filters such as deployment type, versions, etc. that you can see in the instance info tab. So here you can see that you have different deployment types. Then you have traffic profiling, which tells you the HTTP requests per second or TCP server connections, client connections, etc. So once you understand that your instances have low instance score, click on the particular ADC to understand the factors contributing to this low score. So this particular ADC has low score, that is of 75. So let us see further that what are the major issues or the reasons behind this not performing well. So it could be high disk usage, config drift, SSL certificates have expired, not recommended issuer, and not recommended easy strength. So let's go drill down further and see that 61% of the disk has been utilized, so it is high enough. If you go to the SSL tab, you see that 8 certificates have been expired. If you go down further, we can see the list of all the SSL certificates which have been expired, and if you can here itself you can update them. So in the config tab, you can understand the config drift contributing to the low score, drill down exact command contributing towards drift, and corrective commands to get the instance required to get into the required config state. So further, you can see that with this demo, that the infrastructure analytics helps you look at the issues for specific ADC instances. But vice versa is also true, that for specific issues, you can look for which ADC instances are impacted. So not only instant to issue mapping, but also issue to instance mapping we have. So for high disk usage, we can see 5 instances have been impacted. For config drift, 8 instances are critical. Moving further, we can also see similarly that for SSL certs expired, 3 instances have been impacted. They need review here. So with this demo, I feel that you all will be familiar with ADM's infrastructure analytics colossal benefits, with which admins can easily visualize health of Citrix ADC workloads. So this YouTube is available on, this video is available on YouTube. And to conclude further, I would say that complex problems need intelligent solutions. So ADM service is your go-to solution to fill in the missing piece for great application delivery in cloud journey. With 4 major categories: easy deployment with consistent configurations across multi-cloud, flexible licensing options, intelligent analytics for visibility and decision making, and easy cloud migration over seamless and automatic solution. So thank you for spending in more time, and if you have any doubts or questions, please feel free to ask those. And with that, I'll be handling this over to Dave.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Isha. That was great, and that was really good to see how all of the advanced features that everyone else presented today, Arvind, Hari, and Vikas, really ties in, and it really brings it together. So with the expansion and transition to cloud, what are the complex issues? How are some of the things that we provide making it easier? And then finally, how does it all come together? What can you really do once it's available in the cloud with the analytics? Spot on, really appreciate it, and I really enjoyed the content. So thanks so much for that. So with that, that concludes the technical part of our webinar today. And I'd just like to take the next few minutes to provide some closing thoughts and to give away our prize. So as Isha mentioned, the demo that she showed is available on YouTube. And I'd invite you to go to YouTube and search for Citrix TV, or just maybe take or scan this picture here to see what you can find on the networking specific playlist on YouTube. So under Citrix TV, there's a set of playlists there, and specifically relative and relating to all the content today, as well as strictly Citrix networking content, I invite you to check out the networking playlist. Most of it is going to be technical, it's going to be demos, and it's going to be a lot of advanced information on how to really get in and use the ADC in better and more compelling ways, especially in this adapting hybrid and multi-cloud world that we're finding ourselves having to embrace and jump into rapidly. So coming up next month, you may be wondering if there will be a MasterClass to join. So we're actually going to take next month off in lieu of what's called the Citrix Summit. So I invite you to, so we will not be having a networking MasterClass webinar next month, but instead we will be having what's called the Citrix Summit webinars. So I invite you to stay focused or stay tuned to the Citrix website, and we will provide more information about what's coming up in the month of October very shortly. Joining, and then we'll be reconvening again on the 17th of November for everything about app security, specifically focused on the Citrix WAF, bot analytics, bot management, and what we're doing specifically unique to Citrix with machine learning analytics and bots. So if security is piqued your interest, I invite you to join us again in 2 months' time on the 17th of November. Take note, it's also not the first week of November, and we would love to have you back in the middle of November to see what we have to share about security. All right, well, it's time to say thank you for joining us and to show our appreciation for you having been with us for the duration of this long webinar today. So with that, I've got a quick question I want to ask the audience here. And before I ask the question, I just request that if you have won the prize from us previously, to kindly hold back from giving your answer quite so rapidly, just so that we can give everyone on the call today an opportunity to win the prize uniquely. So unfortunately, I've just been informed with shipping regulations that you need to be located either in Canada or the United States to receive this specific prize. So I'm sorry if you're outside of those regions. We really appreciate your attendance today, and we look forward to being able to give you a prize in the future and joining us in future webinars. So with that, there was a specific question that Arvind, or there's a specific thing that Arvind mentioned today in his second presentation, which was specifically on autoscale groups. So what we're doing here is the first person who can type the answer to this question into the Q&A panel will win the prize. So Arvind mentioned that there's autoscale groups provide the ability for ADM service to add and remove nodes dynamically within AWS and Azure, but there was a specific advanced option that he mentioned when configuring an autoscale group to make it be able to use a new node quickly. So this was a very nuanced item in there. Still don't see the correct answer yet. I think we just got it here. So Carrie H, congratulations, you got the right answer. So this was a little tricky, and I apologize if this caught everyone off guard. Usually I pick something a little more general and I get a lot of answers here, but Carrie H, congratulations on the correct answer, which is spare. So the option here is an additional spare node can be enabled within the ADM Autoscale group to provision an extra instance in the cloud and keep it as a hot standby. It does not receive traffic. It continues running in the public cloud. And the idea here is that we can rapidly just divert traffic into it, activate it, and rapidly meet the needs of a huge surge in capacity should that happen, because more typically and more common than not, we see often somebody may run a promotion and all of a sudden everyone's coming in online, or perhaps there's a data center outage and everyone needs to scramble to get connected in a new region. Having that spare node available as a hot standby can make the difference of having an expansion happen in seconds versus happening in several minutes to start up and get that node configured to take additional traffic. All right, so with that, I'd like to say thank you so much for joining us for another fantastic networking masterclass. And it remains only to thank the fantastic crew of our presenters today for their time, for sharing with us all the great content that they prepared. And of course, thank you to our audience for sticking around and for making this so much fun with all of your questions today. I'm Dave, and until the next month in November, we look forward to seeing you then. And until then, goodbye.
Thanks, Dave. Bye.
Thanks, Dave.